So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight's info session. It's about the 2023 Writers Access Support Staff Training Program. We'll be discussing the program and specifics about this year's admission cycle. So for those who aren't familiar with our organization, the Writers Guild Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is we're dedicated to preserving and promoting the craft of writing for the screen. So in addition to our community programs, we also host a variety of public events, as well as providing access to an extensive script library, which is located in our building at 3rd and Fairfax. So as we move forward, just keep in mind, we're going to be answering questions closer to the end. So in the meantime, feel free to share any questions you have in the Q&A window, which should be located at the bottom of your screen, the toolbar, or if I think on iPads, phones, it might be somewhere else, but just check the toolbar, you should find it there. And also keep in mind that we're going to be covering a lot of your basic, frequently asked questions throughout. So maybe save them for a little bit later, see if we cover them. And if not, feel free to submit them and we'll be sure to run through everything. So just to start off, I want to welcome our panelists. We're joined by our instructors, the program instructors, Debbie and Clay, as well as our alumni, Yusuf and Lynn. Very excited to have them. So I will just pass the mic over to Clay if you'd like to start us off with an intro.
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for logging in tonight, taking some time out. We're really excited about the next semester of the program and looking forward to the applications that will hopefully be coming. My name is Clay Lapari. I am a long-time script coordinator. I moved out to LA in 2001, got a job pretty quickly and worked for a very long time as a script coordinator, almost exclusively in comedies, sitcoms, multicam and single cam, and always with a goal to write for television. That's always been the goal. And my path just happened to be a very long and meandering one. And over the course of that many, many years, I got very, very good at script coordinating. Too good, some might say. And now, many, many years later, I did eventually get staffed. Very lucky to have finally made that jump. But I am proud to be a part of this program with Debbie and to impart all the knowledge that we have in this field so that we can share our skills with people who haven't had the opportunities or the access to writers' rooms that I have and that we have. We want to change that. So I'm just really proud to be a part of the program. And yeah, Debbie, I'll pass to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie Ezer, and like Clay, I am super excited for our 4th cycle of this program. Clay and I have so much fun teaching for this program and getting to know all of the new students each year. I am also someone who has had a long and meandering path like Clay. I started in another career. I used to be a practicing attorney, and I was a lawyer who hated to fight. I was a litigator, but not well suited. And I had always been a writer. So I jumped out of one career and into TV. And I've worked as a showrunner's assistant, writer's assistant, and script coordinator on many, many shows, mostly dramas, although I have worked on some single cam comedies and multicam pilots. In the interest of keeping things moving, I'm going to throw to Lynn.
Hello, I'm Lynn. I was in the first Writers Access Support Staff Training Program group, which is very exciting. And my background is I also had a second life. I was a copywriter for maybe a decade. I always knew I wanted to be a TV writer, but getting jobs like as a PA or as a writer's assistant are incredibly competitive and hard to find, especially when you're not connected within the industry to begin with. So I did what I had to do to survive and stay afloat. And I tried my best to find copywriting jobs that were within entertainment with the hope that one day I could get to the TV writer's room. But in order to kind of get myself to stand out, I started performing stand-up comedy around Los Angeles. I took classes at UCB. And that really opened up a lot of doors for me. And then, I applied for the program, got in, and the program helped me get a job. My first job was as a writer's assistant / script coordinator / showrunner's assistant on a kids show called Waffles and Mochi for Netflix, starring Michelle Obama, which working with Michelle Obama was one of the greatest joys of my life. And then after that, that show wrapped and I got staffed again through the program on a show for Bounce TV called Act Your Age that I'm in love with. It's such a fun show. If you can find it, I highly recommend. And through that show, I was given a opportunity to co-write an episode. And I see someone says they love that show. So my episode's number 114. So keep an eye out for it. And I'll pass on to Yusuf.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yusuf Nash. I'm a son of Iraqi immigrants. I was an Air Force veteran, and I'm a huge nerd. I've always been into writing, love storytelling my entire life. So after I got out of Air Force, I figured like, oh, let me take this writing thing seriously. I was accepted to the Veterans Writing Project, also run by the Writers Guild Foundation. And then I got my master's in TV writing, screenwriting from Stevens College, but eventually I made my way to be accepted to the Writers Access post-staff training program, where they gave me all the right skills that I needed in terms of professional. Like I hold multiple internships, but I was a writer's PA in the last season of Legacies. Then because of this program, I was able to pitch myself to be a great script coordinator for True Lies, airing now on CBS. And right now I am a writer's assistant on The Greatest, which is a Muhammad Ali biopic series on Amazon. You see right here, The Greatest is right next to me.
Thanks, everyone. And yeah, as you mentioned, he was also in our Veterans Writing Project. So if there are any veterans here, I recommend checking out our website for more info on that. But yeah, just a little bit of context about the program before we get started. So as some of you might know, this program was founded back in 2021, so somewhat young, but we're here in our 4th session. And its purpose is to provide writers who are BIPOC, LGBTQ+, disabled writers, writers over the age of 50, basically just provide them with the tools and education to become a writer's assistant or script coordinator, which ultimately will result in meaningful employment opportunities, which we connect you with in a variety of ways. Clay and Debbie, I'm sure, could provide more insight on that front. But I guess first off, maybe just to lay the groundwork, Debbie and Clay, and of course, Lynn and Yusuf, would you be able to describe in further detail the positions of a writer's assistant and script coordinator? Like what do they do? Why are they important? Just so everyone here is on the same page.
Sure, Debbie, how would I talk about writer's assistant and then you can talk about script coordinator? All right, so most television rooms, in addition to having a writing staff, will have a writer's assistant and a script coordinator working with them in the room. There are some differences between comedy and drama, but in general, that's the case for most shows. The writer's assistant main job is note-taking. It's a huge part of the writer's assistant job. You are in a room of 10 writers. You are often the only person with a computer. You are typing and logging all of the thoughts that are pitched by the writers in the room. Sometimes your screen is projected on a television monitor so that people can see what you're writing. Sometimes it's not. But you are basically compiling everything that's said, organizing it in a clear and concise way for writers to utilize down the road or maybe that night. You were just the keeper of all thoughts, all jokes, all plot lines, all beats, and all that stuff. You send out the notes every night at the end of your session, but that is the bulk of the work. Yeah, it's a lot different in the script coordinator world, but Debbie, you can talk about the script coordinator.
And I would just add that a duty that definitely applies to both writer's assistant and script coordinator is research. You will often be asked as part of the course of the discussion in the room to look into that include that in the notes later, what have you. And your note taking is much more than you're not a transcriptionist. What is required of a writer's assistant is an ability to really synthesize story as you're going. And it's something that it can feel intimidating at first, but I know, as Lynn and Yusuf will be able to tell you, it clicks in. And that's one of the reasons we do so many simulations in our course. But in terms of script coordinator, the script coordinator, like Clay said, a lot of similarities in the way it operates on a comedy and a drama, but some differences. So the primary job of a script coordinator is to proofread and format and distribute all material that gets sent out from a writer's office. And that includes something called story areas, which are usually short 1 to 2 page sort of sales documents of what an episode is going to be, outlines, and all scripts. But in addition to that, a script coordinator is essentially the hub of many departments. There is a lot of communication and fulfillment of requests for teams in production, the team in post, the team in the art department, the team in casting. It is a job that requires you to juggle a lot of balls in the air and be very, be able to keep track of a lot of things. When you are a script coordinator on the comedy side, you will end up sharing note-taking duties with the writer's assistant. The writer's assistant will ultimately be in charge of getting the notes out every day because the script coordinator is in charge of distributing all of the documents, but you will share those duties. Sometimes it's writer's assistant takes the morning notes, script coordinator takes the afternoon, what have you. On a drama, it's much more separate. A script coordinator might fill in or might take notes if there's a second room, but generally the two jobs are separate. So that's essentially the highlights of what the positions are.
Yes, and I will just add that in a comedy, for those of you who are looking to get in a comedy room, a big part of the job is actually making changes to the scripts. So a lot of comedy is room written. In drama, a lot of drama is written individually by the writer, and the drafts are turned in by the writer. But in comedy, a lot of times you've got 10 people around a table who are all pitching jokes. You have a first draft that was turned in, and now the room is rewriting the script as a group. So you need someone at the computer who is proficient in Final Draft, who can make all the changes that are being dictated to them. That is, and in the comedy, those duties are shared by the writer's assistant and script coordinator.
And I realized I forgot one really big and important part of the script coordinator job. Clearances, which basically very quickly, the clearance process, every script that gets written goes to a research company that flags every name, everything in a script that could possibly have any legal objectionality to it. And it goes through this whole process where a research company flags it, finds out if there are people named the same thing or not. And a lawyer is assigned to the show to say yes or no, you can or can't use that. And the script coordinator is in charge of making sure that if something can't be used in the script, that you get something to replace it from the writers and make sure that you get something that clears to replace it from the writers. And that goes the same for broadcast standards and practices, which is more applicable to say if you're on a network show where you can't use certain words, that kind of thing, as well as a script coordinator is in charge of script paperwork, which varies from studio to studio, but are things like business affairs paperwork to get writers paid for their scripts, and there's a myriad of other things that we go through. But I just wanted to make sure I added that in there. There's a lot that goes into the script coordinator job.
Lynn and Yusuf, would you like to add a little bit, maybe like what has made you an effective writer's assistant or script coordinator? What do you find has been most helpful or most complimented in the room?
I would say the thing for a writer's assistant is just taking notes as quickly as possible. If you're a fast typer, that's a huge pro. And I would mention that in your interview. I can type really fast, and in every interview, it's the first thing I bring up and they always get so excited if you can say, big word per minute. It's a really good move. And also it's just being focused that's the most challenging thing, because you really have to have your brain fully paying attention at least at a minimum 8 hours a day, because you really can't miss anything. And oftentimes they'll just out of nowhere ask you something like, what did we say about that thing a week ago? And you either have to remember it off the top of your head or be able to find it in the notes really, really quickly. So I, always like to review the notes at least, once after I've cleaned them up, to make sure that they're fully in my head. So that I think is really helpful, to just know the notes better than anyone else knows the notes.
Definitely saying the script coordinator side is just like having more proficient and I guess like a little bit more of a technical brain, just because like Final Draft is a very finicky program. And so like you'll sometimes have to get creative in terms of like fixing up widows or trying to tighten up the script to make it look as clean as possible. But we also talk about, attention to detail. You're the proofreader, you're the last, bastion that before the script goes out to everyone. So you got to make sure like everything looks good. There'll be moments where like the writers will suddenly decide to change the name of characters. So when they change name characters the last minute, you got to be, not only you got to check that all the characters' name is cleared, but it's like, oh, does every time this name is mentioned, is it that the right name? Have they agreed to the right name? And yeah, and if something happens to go wrong, I always say like, come up with 3 pitches, and try to offer things to make things easier for the showrunner and the entire staff room to make their job easier, so they don't have to worry about too much things.
Yeah, great advice, everyone, or great insight. I guess before we get into the weeds of the applications, I'd like to go over a little bit about what the actual classes and the structure of the program looks like. So just for some context, this upcoming cycle is going to take place between August and October of this year. And at this point, we're planning to hold these sessions Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. I believe we're looking at 7 to 9:30 p.m. Correct me if I'm wrong, Clay and Debbie. And it would be over that 3-month period. All of them are on Zoom, and this is just for a number of reasons, but a lot of it is also the convenience of everyone being able to participate. As far as the content, Debbie and Clay can speak much better to what that actually includes, but would each of you mind just sharing like some examples or an overview of the coursework, exercises, maybe how these play into actually the roles that people will get after the program?
Sure. So we have a very extensive curriculum that really delves in, and hopefully Lynn and Yusuf would agree, and we've even made it more extensive since y'all were in the program, that dives into the weeds of what these positions require. And we put every participant through their paces so that you feel fully prepared and confident to step into these roles upon graduation. So to that end, I mean, obviously there are times when there's, Clay and I talking at you and some lecture and imparting information, although we always love it to be a conversation with questions, the more questions, the better. But we also run 4 simulated writer's room exercises so that everyone can get not just a chance to feel what it is to do these jobs, but to what it is to be in a writer's room, because most people have no sense, why would you have a sense of what that is if you've never worked in a writer's office, and been near these jobs. So we do that. We also, this is new, wasn't part of what Lynn and Yusuf experienced, but our participants last year found this part so helpful that we doubled it up. There is now homework in the script coordinator part of the program, so that you will get a real simulated experience of what it's like to proofread and publish various kinds of the documents that go out of a writer's room, and what it's like to do every step. And within the program, we hit every single, Yusuf and Lynn, will contradict me if I'm wrong, but I think we hit every single topic that could possibly come up that you could need instruction on, including a whole section on final draft tips and tricks, particularly how it relates to these jobs. But Clay, please fill in what I missed.
Yeah, I mean, really not much. We do provide examples of all the different types of drafts that you'd be putting out as script coordinator, all the ones that Debbie said, story areas, outlines, scripts. Debbie, we talk about how to publish revisions and which is a whole color system that production uses. We talk about scene numbering, which can be complicated, but very important. And just to give an example of one of the exercises that we do is we will, in one of the simulated writers' rooms, we'll split the group into 2 groups. Half of them will be writers' assistants and half will be writers. And Debbie and I will lead a mock brainstorm session about some topic where we all participate, or half of us participate, about what this episode of television might be. And the other group takes notes, tries to organize as best they can. Then we swap. They do swap groups, continue. And then Debbie and I will spend time looking at everyone's notes, giving feedback on, hey, this looks great. This is where you can improve, just to give you a sort of a trial run of what to expect if you make it into a writer's room.
They also provide
and I'm so sorry. Also, we try very hard to have guest speakers come at the end of many of the classes, not all of the classes. These are usually working showrunners or TV writers, or both, who share the mission and mission statement and answer questions and talk about their perspective as a showrunner and how they see support staff and the importance that they have feel for them and how they utilize them and what they look for, that kind of thing.
I was just going to say they also provide a lot of great kind of paper resources. Debbie, I don't know if you're still doing your PowerPoints, but they provide these resources that when you're on the job, you can access, and they are lifesavers when it's 10 p.m. and you're putting out revisions and somebody asks you to do something and you don't remember how to do it. You can't possibly hold everything in your head. I went back and used those resources so many times. I reviewed them each time I was hired in the role. And I remember at one point I did something and one of the showrunners was like, "Did your program teach you that?" And I was like, "Yeah, they did." And he was very impressed. So you do pick up skills, and there are such strange skills that don't apply to anything else. So it's an invaluable experience.
Yeah, Yusuf, anything you want to add?
No, not really. Like, I still keep my notes around, that I take for the class, and it's always sitting in my top drawer, so I'm always referencing them like a lot. So, and the PowerPoints never left my desktop, so it's always a quick shortcut. So yeah, I always refer to things like almost on a consistent basis.
Great. Well, I guess before we get into some of the outcomes from the program, there have been quite a few questions about where people should live. Do you need to live in LA? Like I mentioned, all these sessions are on Zoom, but we will be enforcing kind of more of a cap around, I think, 10% of applicants. That's our max for folks who are living outside the LA area. That being said, there is some nuance in that if you have explicit plans to move to LA, or you have intentions to move here eventually, something we'll take into consideration. But I think Debbie and Clay have some experience as to why that matters. If you want to give like a brief explanation as to why that's so important.
Sure. Debbie, would you like to do it? Okay. So it's tough, right? In the beginning, we really wanted this. We extended this to everybody. We had a lot of people in the first couple of classes, from people in New York, people in the Midwest, people, I think, someone in Florida, which is great, because we want to give people, as many people, I wouldn't say as many people, but we want to give the opportunity to people, even if you don't live in Los Angeles. But the reality is that when showrunners come to us and they're looking to hire our graduates, not living in Los Angeles and not being able to get to Los Angeles makes things difficult. It's hard to be a viable applicant or prospect if you aren't in the city, especially now that we are out of COVID. Because when this started, we were all in COVID and it was a little easier to get work remotely. But now that things are sort of getting back into rooms, it just helps. It's obviously, it's not something that everybody's able to do. We understand that. It's unfortunate. But it really, in order to give enough people a real chance at succeeding in this industry, we've had to sort of narrow the percentage of people who are outside of Los Angeles.
And I just wanted to add to that, that it, like Clay said, it's an unfortunate reality. We have been in a situation where we had showrunners come to us and we recommended people who live out of state who, were committed to moving if they got a job. But the way this industry works is you often hear about a job one day, submit your resume, get an interview the next day, and could very well start the day after that. And we recently had an experience where we submitted these people and they came back to us and they would only interview one of the group because the others were out of state. And it's unfortunate, and it's not us making these rules. It's just how the industry is. So just one thing to consider is if you really want to follow this path, moving to Los Angeles or, just being, in not necessarily LA, but like close enough that you could commute to a job that started in 2 days is, a really good way to show that you are dedicated to pursuing this path.
Also, I will add that the very first person that we placed in a job lived in New York. She was in New York. She got a job was able to work remotely. And the big reason why she was hired was because while the writer's room was in Los Angeles, they were going to be shooting in New York. And so when the production started, she was there and ready to go. And she crushed it. So yeah, I mean, New York is certainly, second option to Los Angeles. And I think someone asked about Canada, which is a good question. I don't think we've had anyone from Canada participate in the program, but I don't think it's a no-go. I think it's absolutely open to people in Canada.
Yeah, thank you both. Well, getting on to some of the outcomes of the program itself, there's been a lot of questions about what happens after people graduate. How do we get folks into positions? How do we facilitate that in any way? So just as like a broad overview, generally what happens is our team will reach out individually to a very long list of showrunners, studios, networks. We have a lot of partners in these studios who are very interested in receiving this list, including some who have like exclusive first look. So they're very motivated to hire. And if there's an opportunity, oh, I see we have the dog here. If there's an opportunity available, they'll reach out, and oftentimes Debbie and Clay will curate these recommendations and also just really try to our best to tailor it to whatever opportunity comes up. So I guess, yeah, anything, I was curious, Debbie and Clay, Lynn and Yusuf, is there anything that you wanted to add when it comes to that outreach part, or even more exciting, some of the successes we've had? Because I'd really like to get into that as well.
I'd love, if it's okay with Lynn and Yusuf, to have you talk about your experience post-program, because that gives the most realistic sense. And yes, I'm dog sitting and I'm obsessed with this dog, so I apologize that I cannot keep him off my lap if he wants to be here.
Sure. I can start. I'll say the first week after the program ends, you're like, wait, I didn't get a job already. And then you spiral into a dark hole for a little bit. And then you realize that nothing is built in a day and they've got a lot of people to place. And then it didn't take very long before I started getting interviews, and I'm very friendly with a lot of people in the program. That's another great thing. You make a lot of friends in the program. There's so many people I still talk to and we lean on each other, and that is so exciting. But then, yeah, you get all these interviews, you get your hopes up, and then you get let down, and then you get an interview that clicks and you can't believe it, and you cry a little, and you call your friends and they all cry, and then you meet Michelle Obama, and then you're writing a TV episode. It's so wild, the journey. So there's definitely going to be ups and downs and that whole roller coaster ride. But Debbie and Clay are so great about answering questions. They helped us out through the negotiation process. I was horrified to negotiate because I just wanted the job so badly, but it's pretty critical because these studios will take advantage of you. And yeah, I say just being so communicative with the program and not being afraid to lean on them, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything for a while, because how I got my staffing jobs is like, I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, you know? So like how I got my PA job is that, you know, one of my bosses that worked in my internship, you know, just knew somebody in Legacies that was looking for a new writer's PA. And then after that ended, one of the writers on Legacies referred me to someone who's going to be working on True Lies. And that's how I got that job. And someone in that room referred me to someone in this room. So it's like all these bounce back and forth, you know, but it's like, and yeah, that's how I get it. But, you know, much to Len's point, you know, after I did the program, it was like a dry spell for a while. But, you know, when I was a writer's PA, I did, you know, talk to, you know, the showrunner and the co-EP saying, hey, I went through this program. So like I could sit in the room and help take notes. I even talked to the script coordinator of the show and, you know, picked her brain and helped her with some stuff as well. So like I kind of showed like the initiative that I could do these stuff as a PA as well, and try to show like I got the skills, you know, I could play the game coach, you know, so just put me in and I could help out, and that helped me with my other jobs as well. So yeah.
If it's okay, I'm going to splash some cold water onto the whole room. Just big sort of a reality about the program and what we are able to do and what we're not able to do. Debbie and I and Kira and Mike and Tanya and Liz, like, we do not see this as a factory. We're not just trying to flood the market with 1,000 great writers assistants. There are over 600 people in this room. The first time when we launched the program and we opened up applications, we got 2,200 applications for that first semester, from which we as a group narrowed down to 48 people. And we split those 48 people into two groups of 24. So the first semester was 8 classes of 24 people. They graduated. Then we taught the next 24 people for 8 classes. And then once the program ended, or those semesters, after the first semester ended, we did a big launch to try to like, hey, let's promote these candidates. And we got a lot of interest. We got a lot of inquiries from showrunners. Whenever we do a blast about, hey, we have graduates, we have great, talented people who are ready to work, who are skilled and qualified, we get a lot of interest. But only a percentage of those showrunners who reach out to us actually follow up with saying, hey, we want to interview candidates. So that's a small percentage. Debbie and I worked hard, really hard, to get as many of those 48 people placed as we could. And we realized we've got 48 people that we're trying to get jobs. Like, this is not going to happen overnight. There are absolutely people from that first class and from the second class who did not or have yet been able to get staffed, even though we continue to push them and promote them. Some people got jobs fast. Some people have yet to get jobs. Some people like Yusuf got jobs independently on their own, but was able to use the skills they learned from the class. After teaching those first 2 semesters, Debbie and I decided, hey, maybe that class, let's pare down the class size. So for the third semester, we actually pared that class down. We had 1,100 applications, and we only selected 16 people because we determined that maybe 24 was too big, and we could give more attention to fewer people, as well as not flood the market too much, and hopefully get have a higher percentage rate. Our goal is to get people hired. It's not to get people through the program. And I'm very quick to say this number. I'm very excited about it, but of this about 60 people that we've had come through, we've gotten just over 20 people jobs. So that is a third of the graduates have gotten at least one job from the program. But that's 2/3 of the people who haven't yet, and we're still trying to. And as we start this next class and we take in however many people, because that number will not be above 16, but we're not quite sure the total. We are going to fight to get those people jobs, but we'll continue to push the people who have come before. And we want to keep that, maintain a number of people that is workable and not overwhelming. Because we, like Kira said, Debbie and I spent a lot of time thinking about who the right person is for what job opportunity that comes. And we try not to submit more than 3 or 4 people for each job. We don't just send 40 names to every job that comes through, right? But I just, it's just a reality check. It's just, and just know if you apply or if you have applied and you haven't gotten in, it's not because we don't think you're awesome. It's that there's just a limited number of seats.
Yeah, thank you for that, Clay. I think that's a really important point to make, is that, this program really is tailored in a way. So it's like, while we're not letting in as many people as, potentially deserve it, we're really trying to work hard for those who do get in. And that, as with anything in this industry, there's no golden ticket to immediately getting a job, but we can provide you with as many tools and resources as possible to get down that path. So I suppose, yeah, maybe the next thing would be, before we get too late, to start going over just some of the application process for 2023. So as we mentioned before, the applications open April 20th, and that would be at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So any information could be found on our program page. And just be sure that your application is turned in before the deadline. That's on May 18th. So April 20th to May 18th, that's the window to apply. And any links and relevant info would be found on our website, the same link that I'd shared earlier. But you could also just go to wgfoundation.org under the programs tab. As far as the basics of what we expect you to submit, it would be your resume, a brief personal statement that's going to be 500 words or less, as well as we're going to ask for info on your writing experience, your genre preferences, some creative influences, like in the form of essay questions. There are a few components of the application that might be interesting to discuss. For example, we don't ask for a writing sample up front, which, maybe Debbie and Clay, you want to provide more insight into why that is less important in our process.
Sure. We don't ask for a writing sample because this is not a program that prepares you to write. This is a program that prepares you to be a kick-ass support staffer in a writer's room. And this program does that because support staffers are the biggest funnel to becoming staff. I mean, they have been and hopefully will continue to becoming, writers, assistants, and script coordinators, becoming staff writers. So we're going to give you the tools you need to kick ass at those jobs and impress. And as people have, as Lynn and Yusuf, you both heard in each of your sessions, I remember one showrunner guest speaker in particular talking about how she didn't care about the writing samples. What she cared about was, what she got from the people who are working for her in terms of their contributions to that show, their understanding of that show, because many have the attitude, we can train you to write our show, but we want to know that you're here to do the best job you can, to be enthusiastic about this show. So this is not a program that's going to, look at writing samples. The reason we ask about writing samples is we want to know, are you serious about working in television? Because that's a really important key component. Like, what are you doing to pursue this path? And as per usual, I will now ask Clay what I forgot.
No, that's really good. the reality is this is a good path to becoming staff writer, but it is not a guarantee path, and it could be a very long path. For me, I said this, I was a script coordinator for about 17 years before I got staff. That's way too long. We have 2 people who graduated our program who have become support staff and have then gotten staffed. So that was fast. For me, it was slow. So know that this is more about giving you the opportunity to get into a room, because if you haven't written for television, the lessons that you will learn just by being a support staff, lessons on how to behave in a writer's room, how to pitch, how to, understanding the hierarchy of a writer's room, understanding just the day-to-day process, how stories are broken, all those things that you may not have any access to yet. It is sometimes, I would argue, it's better to learn that stuff as support staff, as opposed to just being, oh, suddenly you got staff and you've never been in a writer's room and suddenly it's day one and you have to contribute as a writer, and you have no reference to what this is like, so it does prep you in a way that just being thrown into a room on your first day without it wouldn't. But we really, really hope that the people who apply to this program understand that and don't see this as just like an express pass to what is all of our dream to write for television.
Yeah, no, that's very accurate. And it goes into our next point, which was going over eligibility. Of course, they're saying this is about becoming, pursuing support staff roles. Other than that, we asked that folks who have not worked in these roles already apply. So if you've already served as a script coordinator or writer's assistant, this isn't really the program for you. But I know there's been some questions about if you've been a PA before, that would be fine. It's really just if you've already been one of those 2 roles, not really the right fit, since our goal is to really get someone on the first rung of the ladder, so to speak.
I'm sorry, I'll just add that we have had a number of people come to the program who have worked in other areas of production, but have not been able to get into a writer's room. And that is not, it's not required. So you do not have to have had that experience. But having that experience shows us, it's another example to Debbie and I and the other admissions panel of efforts that you have made to try to achieve this goal, but have been unsuccessful for any number of reasons, any sort of barrier that you may have dealt with. But it is not required. You do not have to be a PA, but it is not a hindrance in any way.
Yeah, thank you, Clay. That's a great point to emphasize. I did want to just provide kind of a loose idea of what works on an application and what doesn't. Maybe, Lynn and Yusuf, obviously you made it in. You were one of those, I would say, at your point for both of your courses, under 1% that was admitted, under 1% admission rate. So clearly you did something very, very right. Do you want to share a bit more about how you made your application stand out, or really just what do you think worked?
It's been God, how did I make it work? I definitely told my story, I wrote it like I didn't write it like it's a cover letter, I'm trying to apply the job, but also I just wrote about my story, and most importantly, why I want to be in these positions, as a writer's assistant or a script coordinator. Why do I feel like I have to be there? Even though, writing's the dream, but it's also hey, I just needed to get in the room. I really want to learn how to take notes. I really want to know how to work from the bottom to the top, because if I'm gonna be a showrunner someday, I'm gonna have to know how to work with these people, so stuff like that. So that's, what I definitely wrote as well.
I took a moment to look over my application before this, and I started with a joke because that's who I am, and then I went through why I specifically wanted to be a writer's assistant, because I really, really did want to be a writer's assistant. I, like a lot of us writers, suffer from imposter syndrome. So to me, the idea of getting to be a fly on the wall for a while was really exciting. So I would, really look inward and see if that's, really what you want. You really want to be a writer's assistant or script coordinator, because that's what this program leads to. And I also, I wrote a lot about my personal experience and how my diversity held me back previously, and how it, was a challenge, and how I also think it gives me this like perspective that other people don't have. And that's what I want to bring to the industry, and what I want to do when I get somewhere, because I want to do what Debbie and Clay are doing and give back to the community. And that was something that I feel like I made clear, that my goal is eventually to help people like me. So I would think about the small term goal, and then think about the long term goal, and then try to include it all in, the 500 words or whatever limited space you have.
Yeah, Clay and Debbie, anything that you found really struck you when you were reading through applications?
Well, I was, this is one thing I'll say, as I have we read many applications, and I'll tell you what I read a lot, that a lot of people said that they have watched a lot of television, and that they have wanted to write for television for a long time. And I'm like, yep, okay, that's something that is a given. And boy, I mean, I'm trying to think of what people, if here's a piece of advice. Some people in an application say they want to be a showrunner, and that's an incredible dream, and we all want to be showrunners, and I think that's great, and I don't discourage anyone from wanting to be a showrunner. That's important, but that's not what this program is. So if you say something like, I want to be a showrunner and I want to do this job to become a showrunner, that's not going to stand out to me. Debbie, please.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, like doubling up on that, exactly what Clay said. And also what stands out to me is seeing someone tell their story about how they've, tried to make this happen, how they've tried to follow this path. And, they're, because of, the well-known barriers that exist, haven't been able to get there. And I, like Clay was saying earlier, it neither helps nor hurt. Like, it doesn't hurt you if you haven't been a PA or worked, in some way in television, but it doesn't, like, it also can show us something. But there are many ways to show us something that you're working on this path. So just seeing I would just say concrete steps are really important and will make you stand out. And
Debbie's answer is much
can be
better.
moving to LA. Sorry, go ahead, Clay.
So your answer is much better than mine. And yes, that's exactly right. It's the efforts that you have made and the walls that you have hit in that process help.
Yeah, great advice. Well, I guess last bit about the applications, just know that you'll hear back about your status around early July or so. And regardless of whether you're admitted to the program or not, you're going to get our email. And it won't always show up in your inbox, since we do send them through Submittable. So if for some reason you don't see that email later on, go ahead and sign into your Submittable account and click on the application. There'll be an update there, but just keep in mind that's not going to be coming until early July or so. So there's a bit of a wait, but know that there will be an answer at some point. And then, as far as I know, we had sort of touched on it, but as the application committee, the review process, it basically involves us putting together a committee of different creators, executive producers, showrunners, writers who have worked as writers' assistants or script coordinators. That is the general layout of our application committee. And they take a pretty extensive look at each application through kind of a tiered review process. We lower it down to the final class. So there's a lot of steps that go into that, but if you want to see who has served on our application committee in the past, just go ahead and go to the program page. And if you scroll down right about to the bottom of the page, you'll see a list there. Yeah, I think that is most of the questions about applications. We do have quite a few of questions in the chat, 130 actually, so apologies if we don't get to yours. But anything else that you all wanted to add before I dive into some questions from the Q&A? Awesome.
No, but if I'm happy to stay a little longer to answer questions. Yusuf, or Lynn, if you all need to leave, or if anyone needs to leave at 8 o'clock, totally understandable. Please feel free to do so.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. So I've just started flagging a few of them as we go. This one, there's been a few questions about both the resume and, the personal statement. So some folks have asked, especially if you don't come from the background of being in the industry, like we talked about, is there anything specific that you look for in a resume? Does it have to focus on writing at all? And on that note, in the personal statement, are there any key components that are a can't miss factor? My perspective would be just read the prompt for the personal statement too, because we do ask like what it involves a question about, why are you interested in this program? I would add that not everyone reads that prompt. So in regards to the personal statement, that's a big one. But yeah, any advice or tips about the resume, or can it really just be a standard resume?
I would say with regards to resume, it can just be your standard resume. In fact, I discourage you from sending a specific writing resume, because that's not going to help give us a sense of what you've been doing in life up to this point to prepare you for this. Certainly, when I jumped into my first position on a scripted TV, or I actually worked on it, the first job I could get, and it took a long time, was I worked as a researcher on a non-scripted show, because I was just trying to get any possible experience I could. And there are a lot, we talk about this a lot in the program when we get toward the end, there are a lot of portable skills that are really useful for these positions and for working in writers' offices. And, they can be in a variety of types of positions and fields of work. So we want to know what it is you've been up to and what you've been doing, because that gives us a full sense of, the picture of you. And, it doesn't, we know that like most people are not going to have any industry experience, and that's okay. But we want to know, what is it that brought you to this point to apply to this program? So what have you been doing to prepare for, potentially being in a writer's office? I will tell you that before I jumped careers, I spent over a year taking night classes at UCLA, learning to write television scripts. And the only all-nighters I pulled when I was a lawyer were to meet my script deadlines. I never had to pull one for actual work. So I had a whole portfolio of scripts before I jumped out and jumped into a new career. And that, to me, for me, that was one way that I was committing myself to go down this path. So knowing that you've been writing and that you have scripts you've written is important. Seeing those scripts is not important at this program.
Anything else, Clay?
I don't think I have anything else to add. I think I agree 100%.
Awesome. This has actually come up several times, and I did share a link to a page on IATSE's website with a few folks, but I figure we should just address it with the full group. People were wondering typical salary ranges, benefits, and other information. There's really no better person to ask, or Clay and Debbie, literally the experts on this. So if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah,
Of course. Well, I will share with everyone that Clay and I first met and became friends during the year of organizing for writers, assistants, and script coordinators when we were working to unionize, and that's how we formed our connection. So yeah, we are pretty knowledgeable in this, and I have remained very, very active in this field. So I'm happy to share that these positions are union positions. So once there are still some shows, as Lynn learned, unfortunately, that are non-union. It's pretty rare at this point, but most of them are union positions and they have union minimums. And currently the hourly rate that is a union minimum for both, it's the same for both positions, is $24.50 an hour. Now, the key is, and Lynn referenced help in negotiating. I have jumped on the phone with anyone who gets a job offer, who wants help negotiating. That's something I will always do, because one of the keys is to make sure that you are negotiating for a minimum hours, because that's a good wage, but it's only livable if you're making that for a minimum number of hours a week. And we get into all this in the program. So they're union positions. That minimum July 31st this year goes up to $26 an hour. And you also, once you've worked a position for 30 days, you become a must join, and you become a member of the union. And once you've worked 600 hours in these positions, you become eligible for, I will tell you, the best healthcare plan I've ever had in my life. There are no premiums. It's amazing healthcare. And you also get pension, which, was something that Clay and I never had for the years and years we worked in these positions before unionizing. So Kira, did I miss anything that was asked about, or is that?
I think you hit it all. I was actually just going to share some FAQs that I saw on IATSE's website too. Anyone wanted to follow up, but I feel like that was very thorough. Great. So I think, yeah, I did have one more question that's more about the global of the writing world. And it's a question that I don't think any of us really have a clear answer to, but if you wanted to indulge and speculate, do you have any thoughts about how a potential writer strike would impact the program? And yeah, I guess, there's a lot of unknowns here, but, Clay and Debbie, if you had any insight.
I am happy to jump in unless you want to, Clay.
No, you please. I'm actually trying to answer some text ones in the chat while.
Oh, okay, you go, you do that. So what I will say is, nobody knows what's going to happen. However, I can tell you that the fact that there might be a strike has 100% affected the availability of jobs currently. And it is slow and quiet out there right now. And that is just the reality of what happens when there is a contract negotiation like this. So what my expectation and hope is that there will be a contract agreed to. Whether or not that will be without a strike, I mean, honestly, if I had to bet, I would bet there will be. But, I can still hope there won't be. So my great hope is that it won't be a super long one, if there is one, but that my prediction that I feel confident in is that once a new contract is agreed to, and it will be agreed to, no one in this town can afford for an indefinite work stoppage to happen. What will happen is what's happened in I can tell you there was a cycle, 2 cycles back, where it looked like there might be a strike and then there wasn't, but there was this same kind of work slowdown and it was really hard to find work. And then once the contract happened, bam, there were a lot of shows starting up. And I really believe that that is what will happen again. So I do not think, given the timing of this program, that it will have an effect, it's having an effect right now, unfortunately, on, current grads, because we don't have as many places to submit them, which is frustrating. But I think that by the time we get to the fall, things will be back up and running, and we will have had like a summer bonanza, I hope, of shows starting up and continuing to start up through the rest of the year. But I welcome anyone to contradict me if they disagree. Just one woman's thoughts.
I would concur. Yeah, I think that's a great answer for where we are at right now. Yeah, we have so many questions that vary in specificity. But again, if anyone needs to hop off, please feel free, but I figure maybe we
Yeah,
just get it.
Yusuf is working right now. He's on, he's actually should be proofing notes. So you should go.
Yes, I
Sure.
still
Yes.
got, I still
Yeah,
got about
you
5 more
should
pages
jump,
left.
Yusuf.
And
All
Lynn,
right.
it's up to you.
No,
You are
I'll get up.
awesome.
I also have to eat my dinner since I broke my fast half an hour ago. So yeah, but anyways, great seeing you
Thank
guys.
you so much, Yusuf.
Thank you,
and
Yusuf.
Good luck to the 600 applicants here. And yeah, bye.
All right. This is maybe let's see. This is maybe more relevant for following the program, but I think it might be good to know for folks even if they didn't make it in this round. Lynn, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. Do you have any tips on how to demonstrate your continued readiness and relevance post-graduation if you aren't hired immediately? So I guess just putting yourself out there. You know, obviously we have our mechanisms to get folks hired, but just curious if it comes down to even if someone not in the program. So any advice on that front?
Sure. What I tried to do to stay relevant was Debbie and Clay will host events, live events. We had more Zoom events when it was more, you know, the world was still pretty shut down. And I just tried to go to all of them. If, you know, your absolute dream is to be a writer's assistant like mine was, you'll prioritize it and find a way to go if you can. And that's just good because then you're just on the forefront of people's minds. So, and then you also, some of them, we had people there who were, you know, different representatives from different networks. So you got to meet more people and meeting more people from the program because you never know when someone is a script coordinator at a job and then a writer's assistant position opens up and then they'll turn to you because they remember you and know you. So I would say, you know, networking, making the connections, staying in touch. I know when my job ended, the waffles and mochi job, the first thing I did was I contacted Debbie and Clay and I said, you know, we wrapped, so I'm available. And then right now I'm waiting in between seasons. So I messaged them and I was like, don't worry, like I love my show. That's what I want to do. So, you know, focus on other people right now. So I would just keep in touch. From what I've gathered, they want to hear from us. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Yes, Lynn is a textbook example of exactly how to navigate your post-graduation time, because we need to know what you're up to and if you're available and if you're still interested. And we, like Lynn said, we do our best to host in-person events and to keep reaching out to people. But at this point, like Clay said earlier, there's over 60 grads of this program. And we do our best to keep tabs on everyone, but we need people. We want to, you know, we teach for this program because we love this program and the people who've been in it, and we want to keep hearing from them. So yeah, anything that people can do to keep us updated on what they're up to. And I could not have been more delighted when Lynn reached out and was like, yeah, I'm done, but I don't want another job because I love this show so much and it looks like we're getting another season. I was like, yay. So
That's the dream. Also, there's a Google reporting form, right? That you send out every once in a while. Yeah, they send out a form that's just, you know, tell them where you're at, how you feel. So just definitely stay on top of your email and respond to those.
Yes, exactly. We'll be in touch. Since I saw some questions about like communications and everything, obviously emailing a lot, both from my end and from Debbie and Clay's. And then we also, there's a Slack group as well as some work that's done through like Google Drive, Google Groups in general. So basic familiarity with that is good. And then we also annually will provide access to Final Draft. Saw some questions about that as well. You'll get a 1-year license for free. And it will be something that you would need to know how to use in these positions. I know that we're kind of past our time here, but Clay, I know you were kind of perusing the Q&A.
Just firing away. I'm firing
Yeah,
away.
I can see them getting answered.
I don't know if people can see the answers, if it's public or private, but I'm trying to answer a lot.
Yeah, I believe that everyone can see answers that we responded to. So if you were clicking through and you saw something, feel free to open it. But was there anything that you feel like we should discuss in more depth here that you spotted?
Well, I've seen a lot of questions about word permanent. You do not need to be an excellent typist. It helps, but it is not in any way required. We do not test you upon joining the program about your words per minute. We don't challenge you on it. So that's something to know. Trying to think. Yeah, I'm still going, but I will also listen, Kira, if you ask more questions, and I can chime in with Debbie.
Great. I see a couple. I saw one that would be a great one to close off with, but this one maybe goes out specifically to Lynn. Is there a question that you wished you would have asked before you applied, which kind of throws it back on your end?
Oh, that's so interesting.
Or maybe
think
information you wish you knew too. That could be helpful.
I think attending this really covered everything. I was very blindly applying to it. And I think if you attended this, probably a good idea to mention in the application, because that's, like we said before, one of those things that shows that you're, taking that extra initiative that, someone else might not have taken. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, the things that had been answered here, I think I would have really, I wish I had known, but it still worked out. So.
Great. And then maybe one more reality check question before we start closing out.
This is my favorite.
Yes, it's this has come up quite a few times, but folks were asking about the actual time commitment. What's the work-life balance of being in these roles? Like what that would actually look like. And of course, there's a few people who mentioned how that might affect, if they're working with a disability, how that might affect their health, things like that. I guess maybe just work-life balance, what that would be like, and some realistic expectations.
Yeah, it's a good question. The reality is it can be a brutal job, especially in comedy. Drama, maybe a little less intense in terms of hours, but in comedy, you can absolutely expect to work a 12-hour day, 5 days a week. And it is very common to work more than 12 hours. You could work 16 hours, 18 hours. It's crazy at times. And obviously people who have kids, I have kids, I know how hard it can be to balance that kind of home life with work, not just finding childcare, but also just being involved in your kids and family's life. On top of that, I know that people who have some disabilities that make it harder to work at long stretches of time. I think that those are the reality is, I think with the right showrunner, there are some showrunners who will have no patience for anyone who's not willing to commit every second of their life to their show, which is unfortunate. But there are some showrunners who are willing to work with challenging schedules and people's health issues, and can, whether that's take on 2 writers assistants and a script coordinator, which is not unheard of. It's something that we ask, the reality is applicants probably should be open about that. It'll help Debbie and I to know that. And it's something that you should be upfront with in any interview process that you get. It's just, you have to just put everything out on the table. Also somebody asked about, if I have a full-time job and I need to give 2 weeks notice to take jobs, is that a problem? And it's not a problem, but it will limit the number of opportunities that you will have, because most, like Debbie said earlier, most jobs you'll hear about, and by 5 days later, you've been hired and you're starting. Like you don't get a lot of runway in television to start a job. So that's something that you as an individual need to weigh and say, is it, are you able to, obviously no one wants to leave a job and bird in the hand kind of thing, but that's something that is an unfortunate reality.
The structure of television is so different than anything else, because I was used to marketing where it was like, you get your 2-week off vacation here and there, but it's so bizarre, and you're just working really, really intensely for maybe 6 months or whatever the duration is. And it's just like, cancel your plans with friends, get rid of your personal life. Just know that you are on the clock. Bring your computer everywhere, bring your phone everywhere. And also they're often very much during like vacation times. Like I feel like TV writers are always working during the summer months. It will complicate your life plans, but if you love it, it's not a question. It's just, I will give this up for this. But it is a weird schedule, and a lot of times you're unemployed and you'll call your parents and tell them that, and they'll be very concerned. And then you just have to explain it's the nature, and they're going to say, why can't you get a full-time writer's assistant job? And you're like, that's not real. But it is so fulfilling. And then the breaks are actually kind of nice in certain ways, because of how intense it can be when you're working.
I would just add to that what Lynn is experiencing with a break between seasons is like the dream situation. Does not happen that often, unfortunately, because as I'm sure we're all familiar with, a lot of shows have one season and are what we call one and done. And that very much affects your ability to move up. So when Clay and I talk about the long and winding paths we both had, it's because, we have worked on a lot of shows that never got a second season. And if there's not a second season, there's not a way to move on up. So I say all that just to hit again, there's a lot of luck involved in this industry. So just know that in addition to work-life balance, like Lynn was saying and Clay was saying, like, you're going to work really, really hard when you're on one of these shows. There's just also a lot of luck involved. And that's, something that you have to decide if you're, ready to jump all in on an industry like this, because there's not a lot of security.
Yeah, and some folks, I see the most recent questions were, what do you do for income between those jobs? Feel free to.
Pray, stress, whatever you can find. It's hard. I have, I was very fortunate. I have worked steadily. I've definitely gone 7 months without working, and got really scary. I'm married, so I have someone else who can also have an additional potential income. But yeah, it's hard. And the jobs, they can be a 20-week room, they could be a 10-week room, they could be a 9-month room, they could be, you just don't know. And the reality is, really, when an opportunity comes your way, the best advice I could give is to take it no matter what it is, even though it might be a 10-week room. I would say take it, because in that 10 weeks time, you might meet more writers who can open up to more job opportunities. It's just, everything about this industry is a gamble. It's a risk. There's never an easy decision. That's hard.
Yeah.
I've side hustled my way through a number of dry spells. Given my earlier showing off of the pup that I am dog sitting, you will not be surprised to learn that during one time I did a lot of dog walking. Like whatever I could do to bring in some income. So yeah, side hustles become the name of the game when there are dry spells.
You do also qualify for unemployment, which helps, but the cost of living in LA is so astronomical that it's not necessarily the most helpful, but it's so much better than nothing.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in. A lot of people asking about Atlanta. I can't tell if this is one person asking over and over or if many people are in Atlanta. Yes, there's a lot of production in Atlanta. Marvel shoots everything in Atlanta. A lot of things shoot in Atlanta, but most writers' rooms are in Los Angeles. So, and then the room will often close down, and then production might begin in Atlanta. So it's in a scenario like the woman I mentioned earlier who lives in New York. She was able to work remotely, and then when production came to her, she was there ready to go. So there's a scenario where that might happen, but there just are not many writers' rooms, if any, outside of Tyler Perry, that are in Atlanta.
Yeah, that is helpful to know. I guess to bring it back up, I figure maybe we could close it out with just these two things. Now that we covered kind of the reality part of it, can you just quickly tell us what you love about what you do and why it keeps you coming back, even when the times are tough?
Absolutely. So I work in television because I love television. I grew up loving television. I wanted to write television because I love television. I wanted to be in writers' rooms and specifically write for this form because writing television is collaborative. Being in a writer's room was a dream, is a dream come true every time I start on a new show and get to be in the room. And I've been in the room on every single show I've ever worked on. And as a result, I've lived the dream of getting to earn my way into freelance opportunities. So I've written some episodes. I've gotten to produce those episodes on set. It's, it's just like Lynn was saying, and I'm saying again, it's a dream come true. So we are trying to be realistic about what this entails, but don't for a second I don't want you all to think that there isn't so much to enjoy and have fun with, because I love TV. I love writing TV. And I will never go back and practice law. So
Yeah, I will add that as someone who's, again, worked in comedy so long, I always tell people it's like everyone is paid to just basically laugh all day. You're just trying to make people laugh all day. And that is so much fun. Obviously, there's a lot of stress involved, but in the dark days that I would have, and I've had so many dark, depressing days of not feeling like I have accomplished what I have wanted to accomplish, I would always come back to, I'm laughing most of the day, and I'm with people that I like most of the time, and I'm getting opportunities to write for television, even if it's a freelance script. And I am a part of something that I've always wanted to do. So that has always been a light in my dark times.
One day you're just going to have this horrible, horrible day where everything goes wrong. And then you like walk out of the office and you're on this historic lot and you look up and you see the Hollywood sign and you're just like, movie magic. And then that is what it is. It's also so creatively challenging. I was so frustrated as a copywriter. I just felt like I hit a wall. And with being a writer's assistant, you are endlessly learning and getting to learn from the brains in the room. The writers, the way they work so fast and they have so much experience, it's so incredible to see their brains at work. You will become an infinitely times better writer by being a writer's assistant. And I cannot stress that enough. And for me, that's the biggest joy of all.
Yes, that's such a great point.
Yes.
Debbie and I have worked with so many showrunners, and we've learned a million different ways to break a story, to tell a story, ways that work, ways that don't work, ways that we adapt well to, ways that we don't adapt well to, a million ways to run a room, a million ways to run a show. Like, you learn, it's invaluable information that if you are lucky enough to climb further, that you'll be able to use for the better.
And I'll just add, also specifically to script coordinating, but when I was working as a writer's assistant, showrunner's assistant, I did this as well. Reading every single draft of everything, every outline, every story area, every script, you learn so much because you see the process, you see how things change. You really being in the room, in the office, why things are changing, but you see how it's happening. And it just, like Lynn was saying, it makes you a better writer. So no matter what position you're in, and I've seen too many people pass this opportunity, really take advantage to read every single thing that you can, every draft, because it will just make you a better writer.
I love all that advice, and it actually went into kind of my closing question here, which is, I forget who submitted this. I wish I wrote down your name, but it was, what advice do you have for aspiring writers who might not be accepted to the program? Because I think we could all use that, a little bit of motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I would just recommend to keep writing and writing, work on new things, revise things, submit. There's a lot of mixed thoughts about script competitions, and I think that they are a lot of a crapshoot and money grab, but it can be helpful. If you're into comedy, I suggest looking into improv. I think stand up, like Lynn, is a great way to do it. And networking, just trying to network, trying to meet people, find ways, go to Q&As, talk to other people who are at your level, maybe a little higher. Just really get out there and try a million different ways, because it's tough. I believe me. I mean, you know, Debbie and I know how hard it is. It's so hard, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm a drama writer, but I did improv too. Like, it's not just for comedy. It's a really, like, basically the idea is getting out there and doing things and finding people, like Clay was saying, you know, at or above your level, because my attitude is and has always been, we rise together. You know, the more people you know, the more people you know, which is, like, I know sounds like a silly thing to say, but it's really true that the wider your network is, and I hate that word, but like, you'll learn more, you'll hear about more of what's going on. And, you know, it just becomes more of a possibility. That's what I was doing in that time period before I took any opportunity I could. Like, as I shared earlier, I worked on a non-scripted show. I didn't want to be in non-scripted, but I wanted any experience I could get that might help me meet someone or get in a situation where I'd find my way to a scripted show. And eventually I did. And I also recommend, like, reading, you know, scripts, because and taking those UCLA classes were just, you know, invaluable to learning structure and format and everything, because it all matters.
I don't want to brag, but I'm the queen of rejections, and I have been rejected from so many things. I got a rejection letter in my email this morning. On the path to this, there's just rejection, 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 but then it's the one thing, you know, it's this program that did it for me. And so I just say, you know, never give up, keep going. And yeah, take any opportunity that you can and put yourself out there. Post online, it's icky, but, you know, sell yourself as a writer, brag about your achievements. Let people know that this is what you want. For the longest time, I didn't tell people, and that's something I really regret, because I was shy about it. But the more people know this is what you want, and the more they see you working towards it, the more the opportunities will come back to you.
That's great. I'm sorry. I'm just going to keep throwing until you cut me off, Kira. I'm going to keep answering questions. There's been a couple questions about, like, do you have to declare if you want to be a writer's assistant or a script coordinator in advance, or do we train for both? We train for both. We teach you the skills to do both. Some people come out of the program saying, you know what, I'm not quite sure I want to be a script coordinator yet. I want to be a writer's assistant first. And we will take that and focus on getting them writer's assistant jobs. We can tell, Debbie and I can tell by the end of the run who is super ready to be a script coordinator out the gate. Not everybody will be. That's fine. But definitely everybody will be ready to be a writer's assistant. And we are very open with the graduates about what are they, you know, what are they ready for? You know, we don't want to, we are confident, maybe sometimes overconfident, but we will listen and take their feedback as we consider what jobs to submit them for.
Yes.
We talked about salary. Did I miss that? Debbie, you talked about rate. Yeah. Okay. A lot of that.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I did send a couple links, but would you say that the website is the best resource for anyone trying to look at rates or other information covered in, like, the contract agreement with IATSE?
I actually haven't looked at the link you sent, just because I know all the information, because I've been part of the negotiating committee. So I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine anything that's publicly available would be available on, I assume that went to 871's website. Then yeah, I would imagine that's the best resource.
Yeah, then anyone interested in reading more about that and minimums, I think the website it's pretty great about sharing information about pretty much everything you know on that front, anything covered in the contract. So recommend checking that out. Yeah, any final thoughts from anyone? I don't want to keep you all too late. I know there are so many questions in the chat that we didn't get to, but huge thanks to Clay for powering through so many.
Right. There's a lot of questions. Trying.
Yes. But just know that a lot of it can be found on our website on the program page. And then if there's anything that you just can't find the answer to and you feel it's really critical, you can email us it's just apply, APPLY, at wgfoundation.org. So that's apply plus our website domain. Yeah, other than that, any final thoughts from our panelists here?
Good luck. We really excited to dig into the applications once they arrive. We just know that, I just reiterate it again, that this is not a guarantee path to getting support staff jobs, but we do everything we can for people who come through the program, and Debbie and I are always available. We stay in touch with most of the graduates who will allow us to be in their lives. I can say that, like, when real quick, when I started this program, when Debbie asked me to be a part of this program, I said, absolutely, yes, this sounds like a great thing. But it was only after I started that I realized how important it is. And I think we have all just become more and more invested as we continue, because, this is a problem that needs to be solved. And we are realizing that we actually really can make a change, and we have been making a change, and it's really, really exciting to be a part of that. So good luck.
Yes, thank you, Clay, and huge
Yeah,
thank you.
I can't say it better than Clay. So
Yeah,
I'll just say,
great.
seconding all of that, and good luck to everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you so much, Debbie, Clay, Lynn, and Yusuf and Spirit, for speaking tonight. This has been so helpful. Yeah, once again, check out our website. Critical questions sent to apply@wgfoundation.org. All other info is going to be on our website. Just check the program page. The link will be there, and that's going to be on April 20th at 10 a.m. Check back if you want to hear this again. We're going to have the recording up there as well. But yeah, huge thanks to the panelists, and I hope everyone here has a lovely evening / night wherever you are.
And thank you, Kira. You are awesome.
Ah, thank you.
Yes, Kira, thank you. Good night, Suram. I was going to give you a shout out. My friend Aaron told me to give you a shout out. So I hope I pronounced your name right. Sorry.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
All right.